Oh, what's going on, GameLeap? This is the Jizz, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the 15 most broken champions for patch 12.3, and these notes got released a couple of days ago, so we're going to be breaking down the champions who are the cream of the crop for next patch. So if you want to learn these in the next week or so before the patch hits, so you can hit the ground running, that would be a very wise idea. And just before we do get into the countdown, make sure if you haven't already to check out the GameLeap website linked in the description and comment section for all your League of Legends needs. We're talking champion courses, guides, VOD analyses. We have so many informative resources that will help you become the best player you can be, so check those out and let's get into the countdown. So starting off this countdown, coming in at number 15 is a bruiser type jungler who is really going to enjoy the changes to all of those bruiser items coming in 12.3, and this is Kayn. Now if you're playing Rust or Shadow Assassin Kayn, it really doesn't matter. Like, can you guys remember when blue Kayns were going Gore Drinker? Well, to be honest, this is probably going to be the case next patch if the current changes go through. So with Gore Drinker you're getting 10 extra AD, and even though you're losing a bit of HP, the AD is crucial. And another item that is going to interest both blue Kayn and red Kayn is the new Death Stance. So even though it's costing 3,300 gold, it's reducing physical and magical damage, and the heal is also going to be based off your bonus AD. So think about the bonus AD you're now getting from Gore Drinker. This is going to transfer into that heal, and instead of being based off your max HP, this is just a huge buff for champions who love attack damage, and Kayn is certainly one of them. So in 12.3, definitely pay close attention to Kayn. But ahead of Kayn coming in at number 14, if you want to snowball bot lane like crazy, then there is not a better pick than Blitzcrank. Think about all the supports and AD carries who are picked at the moment. Most of these are pretty immobile. Like if we think of Janna, Sona, Soraka, Nami, Lulu, land one pull onto one of these champions, they are going to die. Especially if you're running Glacial Augment as your keystone, because you will slow not just that champion you hook, but also the other champion in the bot lane, making it pretty much impossible for them to survive. So Blitzcrank, just given the fact that bot lane meta at the moment, most of the champions don't have the best mobility, so Blitzcrank definitely has a lot of value. But beating Blitz to number 13 on the countdown, we're going to talk about another one of those champions who is going to be really interested in the new item changes. This is Yasuo coming in at number 13, and specifically here I want to talk about the new Death Stance, because if we think about it for Yasuo, because you're going to be building AD from Shield Bow, from Infinity Edge, and your future items as well, Death Stance, because the new heal is based off your bonus AD, and the fact you're reducing magic damage as well, Yasuo with this new effect and with the Immortal Shield Bow passive, it is going to be impossible to take this dude down, and he will still deal a ton of damage as he has always done. So Yasuo comes in at number 13. But ahead of Yasuo, we're going to head back to the bot lane here and talk about one of the best AD carries on the Rift, and this is Jhin. And nothing is really changing for Jhin next patch. Jhin is going to continue to be one of the premier AD carries, and really has been ever since Riot buffed Fleet Footwork towards the end of last season. And because in recent times Shield Bow with Send has been nerfed, other AD carries have been nerfed, but Jhin, because he doesn't build these items, he kind of indirectly just becomes better. And not only that, but you bring so much to a team composition as well, in terms of your CC, your long range, and even if you don't win lane, just the fact that you add so much value in team fights is really beneficial. So Jhin comes in at number 12. But ahead of Jhin filling the number 11 spot, this is another one of those champions who is going to froth the new bruiser items, and this is Talon. And just like for Kayn, if you want to go a bruiser Talon setup with a bit of Gore Drinker, Conqueror, and Death Stance, no worries, this will definitely work next patch. But what also might be interesting is going Ghostblade and then into Gore Drinker, because the new AD, it's going to be so useful. And to be honest, this was the build not so long ago on Talon, just like it was for Kayn. So these champions are going to be even more annoying for most players in 12.3, but starting off the top 10 is a champion who probably isn't as annoying as these invisible champions, but he's still up there, and this is Fiddlesticks in the jungle. And for Fiddlesticks, with most junglers reverting to full clearing nowadays, this is really good for Fiddlesticks because you are one of the best full clearers on the Rift. You know, because getting to level 6, this is your primary goal, and once you do get to level 6 and you get Sork Shoes, Rocket Belt, your itemization, the magic penetration, it's still really good, so Fiddlesticks has to be in consideration here. But ahead of Fiddlesticks coming in at number 9 on the countdown, we're going to head to the top lane here and talk about Darius, and this one is a really interesting one. And Darius isn't here because his W is on a 5-second cooldown and Conqueror is stacking for 5 seconds. That's not it. It is because of the changes coming to Trinity Force and also Steris Gauge. So for Trinity Force, you're getting more HP, 100 more in fact, which is really nice for that spike. And even though the threefold strike AD stacking, this is going to be cut in half. It's just the fact that the base damage from the passive is going to get pumped into Steris Gauge's new passive. So you're gaining 40% of your base AD. This is going to become bonus AD, and because Darius has one of the highest base attack damages in the entire game, this is going to be huge. And seeing as you'll be getting Steris Gauge in the mid to late game, this is just going to be a huge spike. Now with Steris Gauge, it is important the shield duration is down and the shield value is scaling off your bonus HP. So really for 1v1s and in the split push is going to be even better, because it's not going to scale off how many enemy champions hit you. So this is really nice for Darius, because team fighting isn't the most enticing thing in the world because you can get kited. 1v1, that is what you're about, so Darius comes in at number 9. But beating Darius Darius to number 8 on the countdown, we have Yasuo's half-brother, and this is Yone. And the two Win brothers in 12.3 are going to be lapping it up because of that death stance buff, which I've already mentioned. So even though it's costing an extra 200 gold, because on Yone you're building so much attack damage, the healing from the new death stance is going to be nuts. Especially on Yone as well, who is notoriously extremely hard to take down, and with shield bow in there and the magic damage reduction in the new death stance, you are going to want to pull your hair out against this champion. But ahead of Yone coming in at number 7, we're going to head back to the jungle here and talk about arguably the best jungler for 12.3, and this of course is Reksai. And for Reksai next patch, there are a lot of interesting options here that you might consider going in 12.3 in terms of the new bruiser items. So the fact that more of Malmortius is giving you more AD, more haste, and also Omnivamp when the lifeline triggers, this is really good. But if you want to go for Sterish Gaze instead for the lifeline passive, then you have to understand that this is scaling off your bonus HP. And on Reksai, you're not really building that much HP because your first two items are probably going to be Prowler's Core and then Edge of Night. So for Reksai, this is probably a nerf, but there are definitely other interesting options in terms of Death Stance, more of Malmortius. So if there are any Reksai mains watching, let me know in the comments what you think of the new items and what could be potentially built on Reksai. But ahead of Reksai, we're gonna head to the bot lane here for the next two picks. And the first of these, we have to talk about Vayne, who despite getting nerfed earlier in the season, is still performing at an extremely high level, and next patch is probably going to be even better because of the Blade of the Ruined King buff that's going to hit the Rift. So the price is going up by 100 gold, so 3,300 overall. This is increasing for ranged champions by 2%. And for Vayne, who shreds these tankier champions, if you are against a very tanky and healthy team composition, you are going to become even deadlier. But the question is, will Blade of the Ruined King really surpass Shield Bow and Wit's End? Because to be honest, as Vayne, because you're true damage, you deal so much damage to tanks anyway, so it'll probably still be a niche item, but for sure, Vayne is still going to be right at the top of the AD carry list, so she has to come in on this countdown. But just ahead of Vayne starting off the top 5 in this countdown, we have the premier support for 12.3, and this is Senna. And even though next patch, Senna is getting nerfed, so what's happening is the soul drop rate on a minion kill, this is going down to just under 3% now. So this means that if you're playing AD carry Senna, there's no real point anymore, because you're not going to get enough of your mid-straight stacks, so therefore the only really option is to play Senna as a support. But what's great is the Q slow is going to stay at 20%, and this is one of the most obnoxious things in the game at the moment to play against, especially in the bot lane, because it is so oppressive. Senna lands one of her Qs, you get slowed and you lose half your HP to the damage that comes after that, and you can't really retaliate because the slow lasts 2 seconds. Also, all of the bruiser item changes, they really might interest Senna as well. So if we're talking about the Black Cleaver change, more attack damage and more ability haste, or maybe even the new mythic Divine Sundra, if you are going to go this item, it's going to give you less HP but more AD, and the build path is now going to build out of Caulfield's Warhammer and no longer a Phage. Caulfield's is very nice because it's giving you ability haste, whereas Phage does not. So to be honest, the build path just looks better, and because you're getting 5 more AD, this will definitely make Divine Sundra rival Kraken Slayer as Eclipse as your first mythic item. But ahead of Senna coming in at number 4, we're going to head back to the top lane and talk about Fiora. And to be honest, out of the 4 champions we have remaining on this countdown, any of these could be the number 1 most broken champion. So I want you guys to let me know in the comments who you think is going to be the most busted, and Fiora is the first candidate. Now think about all of those changes we've mentioned in regards to those fighter items in the top lane. So for Fiora, 10 more attack damage from Ghoul Drinker, and this is also building out a Caulfield's Warhammer, which is really nice because of the cooldown that's giving you. And then after this, we have to consider the Death Stance change, which we talked about, and also the Ravenous Hydra buff. So for the same amount of gold, you're getting 5 extra attack damage. And remember, this extra attack damage from Ghoul Drinker and then Ravenous Hydra is getting pumped into the Death Stance healing passive, so you are going to be unkillable on the Grand Duelist in the top lane in 12.3. But just ahead of Fiora, we're going to stay in the top lane again and talk about Irelia. Of course, you can play Irelia in the mid lane, but next patch going to be very interesting because of the Blade of the Ruined King buff. So for melee champions, the on-hit damage is also increasing by 2%, and in the top lane in particular, because you're probably going to go against champions with more HP than in the mid lane, then Blade of the Ruined King just has way more value. And just like most of the champions on this list, the new Death Stance just sounds absolutely broken on these champions, so Irelia makes the top 3 champions for 12.3, but just ahead of her, coming in at number 2, this is the best AD carry on the 12.3 Rift, and this is Jinx. And for Jinx, it's really like an indirect buff for 12.3 because Vayne, a couple of patches ago, got nerfed, and also Kayn in 12.3 is getting nerfed too. This means that for Jinx, she really becomes the standout AD carry, dodging all of these nerfs buffs around her, and the fact that you're not going shield bow and wit's end, which remember got nerfed a couple of patches ago. So Jinx is standing at the top of that AD carry mounted, but there is one champion in 12.3 he's going to be even more busted than any of the champions we've mentioned. And just before we reveal who this champion is, guys, if you are enjoying these countdown videos, let us know by leaving a like down below. And the number one champion for 12.3, this is Riven. And there are no direct buffs to Riven, but think about all of those item changes we've talked about. For Riven, they sound completely broken. The fact Gordrinker is building out a cool fields, ability haste is just massive on this champion. This is going to make the early laning phase a heck of a lot easier, and even if you are missing 150 HP from Gordrinker, you're getting 10 extra AD. This as a result is getting pumped into Death's Dance, and with the new Black Cleaver as well, so more AD, more ability haste. That statistic, ability haste, this is huge, and this is going up on pretty much every single item. So if we talk about Black Cleaver, more about Mortius, so it's going to be a massive patch for Riven, and I cannot wait until I get a first time Riven on my team who goes 1 in 10. But those were the top 15 champions, guys, for 12.3. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on who is going to be the most busted champion for next patch. And as always, if you haven't already subscribed to the GameLeap YouTube channel, make sure you do so by hitting that subscribe button down below. And until tomorrow's daily upload, this has been the Jhin.